7th, 2019 meeting of Pequannock Township Council. Ms. Marsh.
In accordance with the requirements of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice, which was filed in the office of the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, publishes a legal notice in the Suburban Trends newspaper, and distributed to all persons requesting notice in accordance with Township policy.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a prayer and a moment of thanks for individuals serving our nation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Most gracious Providence, we ask that you bless this governing body with an abundance of wisdom and understanding, so that every deliberation will result in actions which will promote the common good and the general welfare for all the people of Pequannock Township. Amen.
The clerk will please call the roll.
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Here.
Mr. Hurd?
Here.
Mr. Phelan?
Here.
Mrs. Russell?
Here.
Mayor Cole?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Next item on the agenda is presentations, and we have two this evening. The One Book Community Read, Library Director Debbie Maynard and Assistant Director Nicholas Jackson is here. And we're going to ask Councilwoman Florence Lynch to read the proclamation.
All right, you want me to read it from here?
Yeah, we'll go down.
Let's all go up.
Yeah.
Mr. Lou?
I need to put my camera on.
No, I don't think so. There's nobody taking pictures.
You're still in church, so.
I know.
Well, it's still casual.
You want to say a few words first, or you want me to just read it? All right, I'll read the proclamation first, and then we'll have you say a few words. I didn't know the mayor wanted to say a few words. No? Okay. Whereas the Pequannock Township Public Library is presenting a one-book community read this fall, and whereas the Pequannock Schools, Lincoln Park Public Library, and Riverdale Public Library will join this community read, and whereas the book selected for this project is Walking to Listen by Andrew Forstholt. And whereas One Book Community Read programming will take place from September 9th through October 25th, culminating with the author speaking at the First Reformed Church on Thursday, October 24th, beginning at 7 p.m. And whereas the communities of Pequannock, Lincoln Park, and Riverdale are invited to read Walking to Listen. And whereas the communities of Pequannock, Lincoln Park, and Riverdale are invited to attend all programs centered on this community read. Now therefore, on behalf of the Township of Pequannock and its residents, Mayor David Cole, and the members of the Township Council do hereby proudly join with Pequannock Township Public Library in support of this preliminary one-book community read experience. So this is a proclamation is being presented to you guys. I just wanted to say the reason I was reading the proclamation is because I was fortunate enough to be somewhat involved with the Community Read Committee when they were coming up with the name of the program and, you know, the towns that were going to be involved. Like, it started as a small brainstorming session, and then it grew, and they said, let's pull in Riverdale Public Library and Lincoln Park, and we all sat around with members from, teachers, you guys can go into more details, but some of the people were librarians from the schools, and we all got together and we tried to come up with what kind of subject matter would be beneficial for everyone. So it was an interesting process to go through, and you guys were great leaders in it. And I can't believe all the programming that you have put around it, so I think it's going to be wonderful. And I know you got rid of all your books, and everybody's, so that's great. So, I mean, great effort. You might want to tell us a little bit more about it, but I thought you guys did a great job.
Sure. On that note, thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you to the Town Council, Mayor, the wonderful support of the community. Speaking of the books that we bought for our community and gave away, we gave away over 250 copies. And very few have made it back to the library as people didn't have anywhere else to give it. So, I mean, that's just wonderful that over, 250 people were that interested in reading it and looking forward to all the programming that we're having in our library, Riverdale, Lincoln Park, and as mentioned, culminating with Mr. Forsthofel's visit in October. And we have the Pequannock Teachers Education Association going to be lending, is very supportive and helping out greatly. So is the First Reformed Church, where that evening's events will be. The meet and greet, this talk, and then the book signing. So I encourage everybody to please engage in all the programming that we have. We have for adults to kids, and everything in between, crafts, lectures, book discussions, the whole 9 yards. So it's really going to be awesome, and it was a wonderful experience. And if this is anything, I know our future endeavors will be wonderful as well. Yes, indeed, fruitful.
Our kickoff event is Tuesday, September 10th at the Senior House at 1 o'clock. We're doing the first book discussion. I'll be leading that, so please join us if you can. If not, there'll be other opportunities.
And the most current pamphlets and brochures are just on the table, so please take that, share, and we greatly appreciate everything.
Of course.
Picture?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Jay's the roving photographer, isn't he?
Squeeze in.
More?
Can you get everybody?
1, 2. Okay, we're good.
Do you want to take one on your phone?
Yeah, I'll just take it.
Again?
Nicholas is now in the Rotary Club along with Melissa and myself, so we'll have to get this in the Rotary newsletter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't say enough of how great the library is. I mean, everybody all the time just says, like, all the programming that goes on all summer long, it's just amazing.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, the other presentation we have this evening is the Mandeville Midden Dig. Mr. Jorgensen. East Coast Research and Discovery Association.
Yep. Good evening, everybody. Do you have a copy of it? I got copies here for everybody.
I don't think we do. It's in the package.
Yeah, it's here.
It's here.
I'll pay you a copy if you got it.
We got it here.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yeah. We do.
It's debatable.
3 pages, right? Nope, we got it. Thank
There's
you.
actually some additional stuff in there.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
There's an article from the original page. Okay, for the record, I'm Joe Jorgensen. I'm the president of East Coast Research and Discovery. We're actually a metal detecting club that meets in John Lookoff American Legion once a month. We have about 100 members on the books, and what I'm proposing tonight is the Mandeville Inn was the site of the current middle school, the PV Middle School, next to the library. And back in, if you look in that packet, back in, I believe it was 73, they did a dig over there. The history teacher, Paul Goranson, organized a dig where the trash pit is, basically, from the Mandeville Inn. The Mandeville Inn, as far as we know, goes back to at least 1776, 1777 or so. It closed down around the Depression time. It closed down, and it also, the school bought the property in the 40s at some point. It sat vacant for a long time, so a lot of the stuff from the building ended up in that pit, and Mr. Goranson did a dig back in '73. There's a little description of that, and actually I helped out with that, and during lunch break, kids would go in there, and it was just open trenches at the time, and it was kind of like no control to it. People were coming, bottle collectors were coming, everybody was digging there, finding stuff, but it's a huge area, and if you look at that little map I gave you, if you're standing in the library parking lot, facing Hillview School, which would be west, the back corner, there's a ball field, there's a backstop, there's a little section of grass that's undisturbed area that's still, what we're trying to find is a virgin section, because they didn't dig much, they just dug a couple trenches. It's got to be almost a 50-foot diameter area. It extends underneath the ball field where the backstop is now and everything else.
So that used to be the old trash dump?
That was the trash dump. And the way it was, they call it like a kitchen midden, because up until basically the 50s, you had no garbage pickup. So any houses prior to the 50s, you usually, you either paid somebody to take it off-site somewhere, or you just threw it in your backyard.
And you burned it.
You burned it, yeah. And what they did there, because that place was an inn, you know, they produced a lot of food waste and what have you, they would dig a ditch, pile the dirt up, throw the kitchen scraps, just about anything else, clothes, broken dishes, bottles, you know, anything that they weren't saving would get thrown in there, a little dirt be thrown over it. Once it was capped off, they'd dig another trench next to it and just keep, you know, filling stuff up. And you find that in a lot of the older houses here. I know the manse at the First Reformed Church, I did some work on the rear deck, and right under the back window, right next to the house, is all colonial glass and bottles. They actually dug a pit right outside the window and was just dropping the stuff out the window. So if it wasn't stuff that was too stinky, you know, like meat, bones, and stuff like that, that stuff they would try to put a little farther away from the house. But when it came to glass and metal and any kind of objects like that, they weren't too picky where they were dumping the stuff. But what we're proposing is a 10 by 20 area. We're going to do some probing over there and find the most optimum spot. We're going to put up, at our expense, the other thing too is East Coast Research and Discovery has $1 million liability insurance. We will provide a certificate of insurance to Adam. And we're going to put up a chain link fence and probably like a tarped roof over top of it just to keep the weather out, but also keep anybody from climbing in. It'll be locked up. It'll be secure. There's nothing going to be taking place left outside of that fenced-in area when we're not there. We may set up a couple tables outside of the area once we're doing it, but the goal is to actually, and we do a lot of this through the club, is to teach history and the appreciation of history through artifacts that we find. Our organization does a 5-day show down at the Raritan Expo Center. It's a fossil gem and mineral show. And the promoter gives us 3 booths down there. And we're usually one of the features because we set up a sawdust pit and let kids find coins with a metal detector, and then we give them, everybody gets a prize. We average a few hundred kids a day. We had 1,200 kids one year and 900 kids the next year. We're a nice attraction with that. And we're always trying to teach them a little bit about history with the stuff they find. They find a coin, and then we give them a prize. And one of the gentlemen we have sits there with 1943 steel penny. I don't know how many of you, enough of you are old enough to probably know that's probably the only penny you could pick up with a magnet. During the war, there was a copper shortage, so they made the pennies out of steel for 1 year. So we asked the kids, is there any, can you pick up a coin? We have some clad coins there. And they said, no, you can't pick up any. And we said, well, why can you pick this one up? So he explains what the whole thing is. And it's funny, out of doing this, we've given away hundreds of those pennies. And we probably had about 5 kids that actually knew. They said, oh, that's the copper shortage. They made them out of steel. And I always ask them, are you homeschooled? And 3 out of the 5 were homeschooled. The other 2 were Boy Scouts. So it's most of the adults don't even know the answer to it. So, but we're always doing something for the kids, and we're going to include that in this project. I spoke to Ms. Maynard from the library, I see she may have left, we're going to run a program, a kickoff sometime maybe in October or November. We're going to do a presentation because we have a traveling display of all the different kinds of artifacts we find. And we're going to do a display and a talk at the library and get people excited, because what we would like to do is I may even contact, I will contact the middle school principal and see if they want to run some kind of program. We want to get young people and even adults to help out while we're there. And when we mean help out, any of the members of our club will actually be digging in the pit and filling buckets up, because this trash pit goes down 4 or 5 feet. It's not like a surface thing. It's a substantial amount of stuff in there. We would fill up buckets and have tables where people would have dust mask, gloves, and glasses, and they can sift and pull out the small stuff, because the bigger stuff you find as you're digging, but there's a lot of buttons, coins, all kinds of incidentals that get thrown out with the trash, the same way stuff gets thrown out today when you throw things mistakenly get thrown out. So we want to try to find some of that stuff. And Rochambeau's troops camped 50 feet away from where this trash pit is. So if we're lucky enough to get on the early sections of this pit, we may find some really interesting things. Some of the stuff I remember back then when we were digging it, we used to go out there during lunch break, and one of my friends jumps up and has a double-barrel rusty flintlock pistol that came out of there, and that was the coolest thing. I don't know whatever happened to that, but there was a few other, talking to Paul Goranson, there was a couple other like flintlock rifles and discarded things that were in there. So there's a lot of interesting stuff. Everything will go to the Historical Commission, anything they want. If they don't want everything, we'll put some displays together, because we have our teaching display that we do. But we will actually, we're going to be doing a pretty substantial documentation of the stuff. One of our members is a surveyor, another member took a lot of archaeological courses in college. He actually writes for one of the trade magazines, American Digger, and the publisher of that is giving us like about 4 to 6 feature articles in the magazine to follow this. We're going to do some like little YouTube clips of finding things and get some promotion out there for the hobby and also for the town. Encourage people to come see the museum at the train station, see the Martin Berry House, and promote that. We're also going to be doing, if we get approval for this, we're doing the New Jersey History Fair. It's the same day as the hoedown, I think September 14th, down on the Monmouth Battlefield. And there's about 200 vendors. Most of the historical societies have a booth there. And we're going to pass out an invitation to all those different towns to, come and observe and see what we're doing. But like I say, we're going to be able to identify 99.9% of the stuff we find. We should be able to identify and give a time period of when it was from. We'll categorize it and turn it all over to the Historical Commission. So, any questions?
How long will the fence be up for?
I was looking for like a 3-month window, like March 1st to May 30th or so.
Is that going to impact the Little League?
Where we are, I don't think we're not on their field.
No, you're behind it. You're behind.
We're behind it. We're almost by the curb of the parking lot, pretty much. So I don't think, people may sit behind home plate. I don't know how many people hang out behind home plate. They're usually on the sides more, because I've observed this summer.
Just the pitcher's father.
Yeah. And there's still room. There's still plenty of room behind the backstop, because there's probably 30, 40 feet of space between the curb and the backstop. We don't want
to do the one first and then do the second one like a couple months later?
What, because we got the 2 here?
Yeah.
No, that was just the 2 areas that we can fit the fence. We're going to probe them and see which one is the best. I'm hoping that, from what I could remember, there was a couple big trees in this area that we're doing that obstructed any digging back then. Most of the digging was pretty much where the home plate is, believe it or not. Yeah, that's where most of the trenches were, was about where the backstop is. It didn't get too close to the trees because of all the roots and everything. And talking to Jay, we were trying to anticipate where the earliest parts of this would be. And I theorized it was closer to the turnpike, and they moved back over time. So
Out over
yeah,
time.
west, over time, because it's kind of an oblong pit, and it goes more west from where the parking lot ends, because
When we developed that field, would we have dug it out, or would we have just capped it?
I think they just scraped stuff off of it and capped it, because it was basically right under the surface. And if you walk around, because we were walking around over there looking, and found a couple little pieces of oyster shell, there's a little colored glass. You can see stuff if you walk around there. You find surface finds because it's so close to the surface there.
Plus, everybody's kicking stuff up, you
Yeah.
got everybody with Little League and softball and...
Because the one good thing is, there's really nothing, other than finding any kind of thermometer that would have mercury in it or something like that. It's not like it's a hazardous waste site, because it's too early. It kind of stopped around, around the time of the Depression. So, you might have some lead-based stuff in there or whatever, but it was more, it's not like they dumped paint or anything like that. It was all stuff from the inn.
When do you think it dates back to? So if it stopped maybe around the 30s, how far do you think it
Well,
goes back to the 70s?
there's an article from 1777. I think Rochambeau bought some stuff from the inn. So it had to have been established at that point.
It was a stone building, it looked like a regular stone house, and then they built all around it, and additional stories on it over the years.
There's a few surrounding pictures, but it was a pretty substantial building once it was abandoned. And there was even a family crypt in the back. They owned that whole, I guess the whole school property pretty much, where Hillview is and everything. It was a big...
Yeah, the Slingerlands, yes.
Yeah, but those two were, because it shows up on the old maps, it goes back, but I don't think anybody's pinned when it was actually built. The turnpike is King's Highway, so it goes back to British occupation, so I'm sure that it popped up soon after they established that route, because you don't realize how historic these two roads, Newark Compton Turnpike and Patterson-Hamburg Turnpike, those are the crossroads of the colonial interstates, basically. So there was a lot of history right in this area. So, and hopefully we're gonna find a nice display of that stuff that will be in addition to the town's coffers.
How far from the bleachers on the third base line would you be digging?
We're
On the ball
Behind
field
them?
there?
that's 50 feet away, I would think.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's not even near, it's not by them.
So it's not even going to be there?
Yeah, if you look at that, if you go over there and you look at that curb,
Like
there's,
where the parking lot is?
yeah, where the parking lot is.
Okay.
It's almost right off the curb line. There's a line there between, if you see that line between the option one and the parking lot.
Right.
There's like a yellow plastic on one of the cables for the telephone poles right there.
Oh, okay.
We're just past
Okay,
that.
Okay, so you're before the tree line?
Yeah, yeah,
I
pretty
think
much.
this is a great idea.
Yeah, me too.
I really love this. I love the idea of getting the middle school kids involved and the library involved. I think this is fabulous.
Yeah, because the one thing that we would ask, and I'll coordinate all this through Adam, is we'd like to put a couple of banners on the fence, of what we're doing. And we have a sponsor from Istanbul, Hungary. One of the metal detecting manufacturers is trying to get a foothold in this country, and they're willing to give us a lot of...
We'll have to talk about that.
a lot of like YouTube coverage and more publicity than anything else. But
Sounds interesting to me.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think it's important for, to preserve that history and teach the kids. And I actually remember being in elementary school and in some history class going back there, and they took us back there, I remember.
yeah, they had it open for, I guess, at least a year it was open. But it was, like I say, we're keeping everything very secure, like for safety reasons. Back then, they dug a 5-foot trench, and what you find find the majority of it is, believe it or not, is oyster shells.
Oyster shells?
Oyster shells and clam shells. And there are tons of oyster shells because...
Oysters.
Yeah, because being we were close to the East Coast, that was something that was fairly easily transportable, and it was a delicacy, basically, fresh seafood. So you find a ton of oyster shells, and there's a lot of broken glass bottles and scraps of metal. Most any wood. You do find some leather, like shoes and stuff, that just the way it's encapsulated. And there's a lot of ash from the coal stoves and stuff in there, too, unburnt coal and chinkers and stuff. So you don't know what you're going to find, though. It's pretty interesting. There's a lot of neat stuff in there. So, and we will usually try to put up some type of, we will try to put a schedule, because we're trying to do it like after work and on Saturday mornings. And we'll also try to work around any kind of game going on, so we're not interrupting anything. But we're pretty much staying away from them as much as we can. But we will try to put, make it known that if we put a flag out, that means you can come and help or observe or whatever you want to do. We're trying to get as many people to do hands-on with it as possible, even if they're just standing there watching what we're doing and seeing what things are.
Sounds cool. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. We'll keep you updated there. So,
right.
so we're pretty much good with going with, because what we were trying to do is put the fence up before the ground freezes, because put the structure up, and I would put about a foot of salt hay inside there, because that will keep the ground from freezing. If we don't have a snowy winter, we can bump the schedule up. We'll do it in January if we know we're not going to get snowed out. There's no guarantee for that, but if it's not, because that's the kind of stuff that's better to do in the cooler weather. I'd rather not drag it into the spring at all. So if I have the flexibility to jump on it in February, possibly instead of March, I would like to have that option too.
I think that's even better, because we're not using the fields anymore,
Do we need
except
to
for soccer. That's way out of the corner.
No, just conceptually, so that...
Yeah, it was just
If there are any questions...
information.
Yeah, I think we're all in favor of it.
Go with the
Even
salt
putting
hay
the
and the
fence up
fence.
as fast as possible.
What's that?
Go with the salt hay and the fence.
There you go.
Yeah, because that way, if we did have a really cold winter, we don't have to wait for it to thaw.
Yeah.
Because
Just,
that could push us back into...
Bob will have to
Talk about
the banner.
Talk about the banner.
We'll talk about that. We will.
Okay, yeah, I might have to get a temporary permit or whatever you have to do, but something that, so you don't get a ton of questions what's going on.
We'll talk.
I don't think you can advertise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next on the
Thank you,
agenda
Jeff.
is reports from volunteers. At this time, are there any reports or comments from volunteers serving our community? Jay?
Hi, Joe Wanzik, 26 Poplar Avenue, and Chairman of the Township Historic Commission. The Historic Commission reviewed the proposal of the East Coast Research and Discovery Association for the Mandeville Midden, and we heartily endorsed it. We thought, we know it's a great idea, and the fact is that kids are going to see that, and they're not entirely cynical. Well, some of the 8th graders are, but some of the younger kids, they're going to see that, and especially if there's a sign there, and they hear there's buried treasure there or something, and it'll get the kids' interest, because you got to catch them young. By the time they're older, that's it. Second thing is Dave Stapp already handed out our Pathways of History. We have 2 facilities, obviously, again this year, the railroad station and the Martin Berry House. These folders will be available at the library, downstairs in the town hall racks, and at a number of public places, banks, and whatever. Some members of the public can have them. There's also a Pathways website, pathwaysofhistorynewjersey.net.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Any other reports from volunteers? Next on the agenda is public comment. That next period of public comment, this public comment period will be limited to a total of 30 minutes. An additional period of public comment is reserved for later in the meeting. Individuals are requested to limit their questions and comments to 3 minutes. If anyone wishes to address the council, please wait to be recognized, come to the microphone, and provide your name and address for the record. Jordan?
like to call it his socks.
Yeah, I was going to say the same.
I have plenty of them. Jordan Galliano, Tempe Avenue. I know it's been quite a while since myself or anybody from the skate park committee has come forward and kind of given any update. I just want to kind of say that this year has kind of been pretty difficult with Steve Connolly's departure from town. I'm sure some of you may have heard. So with Steve's departure, there's been a lot of changing of the positions and roles within the nonprofit, which has been quite a bit to get accustomed to. And then, unfortunately, as of lately, I've also lost my job and been having to deal with some personal matters, some health issues at home. So it's been kind of tough to really stay on top of the ball with fundraising and stuff like that. And also, too, with this year, since there's been some budget issues in regards to Parks and Recreation when it comes to us doing lessons with the township. So we would have to fill out permits and insurance for special day use for doing lessons and stuff like that. So again, it has been kind of difficult to go ahead and do the whole fundraising effort, but we are still committed. We haven't gone anywhere, just things have been slowing down. But at the same time too, it's been a little troubling to see a lot of other communities around us that have been building skate parks, like West Orange, East Orange, Orange, Montclair is working on getting a skate park, Clifton just recently reopened their skate park, Neptune, New Jersey, Brick, New Jersey, Jersey City is going to be building the largest skate park in the state, and it's going to be the best skate park. And with the Olympics coming up next year, it is a pretty trying time at this moment to kind of stake your claim in the game, because my feeling is that with the Olympics coming up next year, there's going to be a higher demand for skate parks, which will then also potentially raise the cost of doing skate park construction. So with all that being said, I know that there have been a lot of issues in the past with information being spread, cost of the project, use of the facility, interest of the facility, and everything like that. And right now I'm kind of at a crossroad because I'm planning on moving out at the end of the year, and it's getting really tough to focus my energy into doing something that I love, and I don't want to stop because the kids in this town can really benefit from it, and working with the kids all over doing skate lessons, they love it. I'm sorry for getting emotional. This is kind of tough to come up after some time. But with all that being said, I want to start on a clean slate. I know we haven't really made that discussion in a while, and I feel like now was kind of the best time for us to kind of wipe the slate clean, start over, and kind of reevaluate the whole project, because I know that, like I said before, I lost my job. I'm dealing with some mental health issues at home, and we are a stigma-free community, and to combat some of that stuff, it's a lot with prevention. How to engage the community in making themselves feel valuable and useful within their community, instead of the after fact of individuals getting addicted to drugs or falling into a severe state of depression or stuff like that. I actually found out today that I lost a friend of mine in my Boy Scout troop from suicide yesterday, and he was a supporter of what we're doing, and I just feel that it's kind of difficult to kind of give the same update to our supporters, saying that we're trying the best we can, but it's kind of difficult, especially on my end with the administrative end. So that's all I kind of want to propose, is that whatever we can do about restarting an ad hoc committee, or just having some sort of some community forum to, express the facts, the interest, and everything like that, to kind of expedite this process and kind of prove our worth, would be really beneficial to me and all the other kids in this community that can really benefit from something of this stature. So.
All right. Thank you, Jordan. Take care of yourself.
Thanks.
Most important.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Anyone else? No? We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's the manager's report. Mr. Brewer.
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, the ECRDA took place. Thank you to Mr. Jorgensen and everyone else. Mr. Wanson spoke about that. I agree with the comments made. I think it's neat. I think it's fun to have that level of history and interesting to get involved with. The next item, previously in June, at the second meeting, the council directed the exploration, thank you, of relocating the dog park to Greenview. So staff was tasked with evaluating some of the costs that would be associated with that move. Right now, memo was provided to council in the packet. Costs for just site work, exclusive of survey, exclusive of other improvements, are roughly $50,000. Obviously, we don't have an appropriation in the 2019 budget to account for that, but it may be something to consider for 2020 or other fundraising opportunities. I know there's some suggestions made earlier tonight. The good news is the Foothills Dog Park is almost completely dry. So there's some damage associated with the fence that, as a result of freezing and unfreezing, kind of some of the foundations popped out. The back corner still has a little bit of marshy or mushy area, but I would like to direct Public Works and Recreation to make that usable again to get it open. I think we can do that without significant investment or expense. So I don't think, unless the council feels differently, of course, I don't think we can commit to moving it to Greenview tonight, but I think we can commit to getting it back open.
If it's not going to cost too much money to do that.
Correct.
And we never really found out what the cause was either, just groundwater.
Well, the other issue is Greenview, the right place to put a dog park.
Right.
So I mean, do we have the ability to, let's say, raise our dog park? Like, can we put material there and bring it up 2 feet so we don't have this issue again?
Not speaking to an engineer, my guess is you have buffers and environmental
5 feet of water
concerns and,
There's like 5 feet of water. I don't think 2 feet is going to help.
Yeah, unless you're going across the parking lot, I think the water may still get you.
Elevated platform, yeah.
And we don't know if Foothills will stay dry. We don't know if Foothills will flood again in 6 years, 3 years, 10 years. I mean, we don't know.
Foothills ice skating rink.
Yes. There you go. So I just wanted to report back to council, and I know there are interested parties.
I think it's a good idea to try to, at least for the time being, repair what we have and...
Let's get it reopened. Fix it, get it reopened.
Maybe we get the street sweeper in there and sweep up the parking lot a little bit.
It was one of the first things we did.
Okay.
So in the meantime, are we going to continue researching, like I know you said you have a proposal for $50,000 at Greenview Park. I mean, are we going to keep
gathering costs
and looking at locations and coming up with a long-term plan?
Well, I think they looked for a location. I think staff came up that this was the best spot. So if we want to pursue it next year, I think we're going to need to do it in the budget.
Yeah.
Right.
It is, Ryan brings up a good question, is Greenview the best spot? Because it's close to the river.
A lot of action going on there.
I've never seen that part of Greenview Park flood, but I've also never seen the flooding that happened at Foothills Park either. So.
Right.
And it seems like there might be some alternative, if that's the location, or wherever, it seems like there might be some opportunities to explore things like what we heard tonight, like with grants or
other support
Boy
from
Scout,
other places,
Eagle Scout projects or whatever.
I know we took a little piece of DPW's. Is there any way that we can take a little more of that and put the dog park right next to the dog shelter?
I know, that's what we were saying.
Without earning significant ire from the Public Works Department, I would rather discuss what we need.
Yeah, I was talking
the
to
dog
Peter
park,
about that.
the Foothills doesn't flood anymore. I mean, it's a wait and see. It didn't flood in how many years? It was a freak thing.
Yeah, maybe it was.
Could never happen again, or it could happen in 2 years. We don't
It could
know.
happen every year. We're just going to have to
I just find it kind of funny, too, that the state is doing work on 287 right above it.
Yeah, you wonder.
And now all of a sudden our dog park is...
Let's get it repaired, let's get it open, and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
I agree.
It does make...
Move ahead with fixing it.
Okay, will do.
Next item, there was a request from a resident who bought 22 Voorhees, which is a substantially damaged property, and it doesn't have a certificate of occupancy. It can't until it's elevated. The homeowners purchased it in the summer of 2018. There were two elements to the request. One was for reimbursement of water utility payments. That is something that I understand from the staff in the collections office and finance. When the water's turned off, has been granted in the past. It requires a resolution that was scheduled for consideration of council this evening. But there was an additional request for reimbursement of solid waste utilities, totaling approximately $110 for payments to the solid waste utility. My interaction with the resident, I explained that that was not something that had been granted in the past. Based upon the nature of the collection that's provided, you don't know if it's been taken advantage of or not. I declined granting the request, and I was asked to take it to the level that is beyond me. So it is presented to the Township Council for any discussion. If council wants to give an answer, have further discussion in another venue, that's council's decision. But as I said to the resident transparently, that it was not my recommendation. It is not my recommendation that this request be granted.
It's $105 for crying.
Well, I mean, how do we know?
Yeah, but wait,
that-
that's just, and it's going to continue, I would
Right.
think.
No, just to expand on that, there is a process administratively where if the water is turned off to a home, and we've had this because of the issues that we've encountered in the past, a form can be completed with the Utilities Collections Office, and it suspends collection moving forward. We notify the haulers. That's part of our operation.
And that was a
So it's-
3-month minimum, right? That has to be for like, where did I read 3 months?
This is definitely going to be for more than 3
Right,
months.
oh, because it's quarterly, so it would be a quarterly.
Yeah, so the issue has been arrested moving forward. This is just a request with respect to the retroactive payments that have already been made.
They didn't come to us earlier.
Yeah. And Rich, how do we know that they didn't put garbage out? I say
Yeah,
we say no. That's what I say.
I mean, it's one thing with the water, we know that
We're
they're
not
not
charging
using
them
the
anything now.
I also
water,
think
but
it opens up a can of worms.
It opens a
wouldn't
can of worms for
Because-
snowbirds, for people who go away, all of a sudden, okay, I'm going away.
And they're asking for $105.
110.
110.
There's a
Just
prorated
that if
quarter.
we've never done it before.
Do we agree that we
I
stay
agree
with
with
the
you,
no?
Adam.
We should not do.
Everybody's on the same page? Yep. Councilman?
Yep. Sorry.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that direction. The itinerant vendors ordinance is scheduled for public hearing and potential adoption this evening. We've discussed that at length, so I won't go into too much detail. And then lastly in the memo, and then I have a couple other quick items, but on the memo, previously there was an ordinance adopted to sell 90 Village Road. As the council's aware and the public may be aware, there were no interested parties. We think we need to do a better job of marketing that. After review with Mr. Oostdike, the recommendation was there be a resolution that would establish the ability to sell it that's consistent with the ordinance, so that's scheduled for the council's consideration this evening.
And just so the public knows that we bought 90 Village Road for a sewer easement. We bought the house and went through the property, so it was much cheaper for us to connect Spa 23 than it was to go all the way around, so, and now we're trying to sell the property.
Yes. And then the real quick two items, previously it was announced that there would be a discussion on sewer utility connection/capacity fees. There was an issue with the calculation that was presented to council and the public previously, although it was reviewed by outside professionals. We circled back and we're making sure that that is correct. So we pulled that issue from discussion this evening. Thank all the people involved in that conversation. And lastly, there was some discussion about PV Park and the PV Park analysis. I just want to touch base with council. I know there were some questions about the delivery of the analysis on the sewer utility. I don't know if the council has a preference in terms of when they want that information and then when it will be scheduled for discussion. I don't know if there's the preference to have a preliminary orientation to it, and then it can be ground in on, for lack of a better description, or if people want it a month in advance so they have time to really review it, whatever the council's pleasure, we're happy.
I don't like seeing stuff 2 or 3 days before the meeting.
Right.
Agreed.
I have a special request.
I think there could be.
Bigger font?
Bigger what?
Font, because
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, yesterday's?
Yeah, that was just a printout of a report. That's how it came out of the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't, whatever the time period is the council prefers, I'm happy to comply with
Well, I
that
think-
and have it out well in advance.
Well, I think the information needs to kind of be disseminated again, right? Because we only have, there was
The
some...
report isn't done.
Right.
The analysis
That's
is
not
done.
final numbers for this year,
That's-
for 2019.
Correct.
Right, so why don't we just wait until we get final numbers?
It was planned for September. Obviously, the sewer utility discussion is going to push back a couple meetings, so it was planned for the second meeting in
Right.
September, but if council wants to be able to review the data,
How about a workshop to kind of
whatever the council plans.
review it with everybody, a special meeting, I guess we have to call for that, like you have a workshop meeting just on that, and then
Whatever
bring
the
everybody up
council
to speed.
prefers.
I mean,
It could just be an hour before a regular meeting then.
do a workshop and then we'll have a chance to review.
Yeah, I'd rather do that because I'm traveling
Yeah.
too much and it gets too confusing.
An hour before
Do an hour before a meeting.
How about an hour
September.
before the second
October.
meeting in September?
Yeah, and then we'll have time to review it after that meeting,
And then
just to bring everybody
we'll
up
have
to
it on
speed.
for another discussion.
This way you can get all the questions if we're missing a piece.
Will we have all the numbers in by then? From PV closing? Will you be able to do
2019
that?
numbers?
We should. If there's an issue, obviously I can let council know, but if we plan for the second meeting in
Should we
September,
just push into October, just to make sure?
as soon as it's ready, I'll have it out. I'll follow up with, I'll
Well, we
follow
can
up with
still-
council
yeah.
to then say, when do we want to
We can still have a
discuss
special
it?
meeting, bring everybody up.
Here's the thing that I want to, I don't want this to drag on,
Right.
because I don't want Spa 23
Right.
or the Boys and Girls Club or any other camp to advertise
Right.
for next camp, and
Right.
then, we change things after they got print out of what's going on.
I think we
So,
should go ahead with that special meeting, that workshop in September.
Second
And if there-
meeting in
Yeah.
September?
and
So
if
the
there-
24th.
If there's anything that we're missing, obviously that'll be a follow-up to that meeting.
Sure.
This way, everybody will at least be on the same page, have the same information, be able to ask any questions that weren't answered.
And research can be done, and obviously there are no ordinances or any significant changes being scheduled. It's just a discussion of the operations and a presentation of the analysis.
Wouldn't we have it on for discussion then the first meeting in October as well? Or,
Depending upon the outcome of the meeting on the 24th, it's possible.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We're good with that? Yeah. All right. 24th, 6 o'clock. Workshop meeting, PV Park.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Are we meeting at PV Park?
And obviously, if you get information before that, you're going to send it out.
As soon
before
as
that
the,
workshop.
as soon as the analysis is ready for dissemination, it'll go.
And everything that you sent out up until this point,
Was for 2018.
right, I think went out in a couple of different emails.
Correct.
Is there any way we can
Certainly.
just,
Yeah.
And is there any way, what exactly are we is there any way we can break it down so it's a little less?
cumbersome?
The big things that we've encountered when we've been reviewing all this stuff kind of at a macro level is, the hours of operation and how that integrates with the participation. Are we spending our money where we need to spend our money?
Right.
We've discussed how many lifeguards we need. We've discussed the snack bars operations, obviously the fee structure and how that jives into the operations of the park. We've identified some efficiencies already. There'll be more recommendations for your consideration. But really, that's the policy level stuff.
I noticed on the stuff you sent yesterday, something from Woodland Lake was on there. So that's part of PV Park?
I'd have to go back and check.
Yeah, there's like a...
Yeah, it's behind PV
It's,
Park.
they're bodies that are
It's like
connected.
a $3,000, so I didn't know, I know they're connected, but...
And we had Senator
You're just looking
Pumpkin.
at PV
Yeah,
Park, so
we're
you're
just
trying
looking at PV Park, and I saw the money going out for Woodland Lake, but I didn't see like badges going in for Woodland Lake, so
I'll have to take a look at it.
I was just curious.
I don't think, it's an asset to the town.
Right.
And I hate to say it, but I don't think we'll ever make money or break even with
No, but I guess-
PV Park. I think there's some things that make money, and there's some things that
But
don't make money.
to be able to analyze it, you do need
To
to
be
see
able- yeah.
all the expenses,
Right.
operations that go
I
on.
think we're
But not
charging
just
some of
that,
these
it's
clubs
everything
way too little.
from DPW's maintenance and time invested and, how often you upgrade things and, draining of the lake and it's like everything.
It's an asset.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not
it
use
is.
that asset.
Right.
Oh,
I know,
absolutely,
but
100%.
if Spot 23 is using it and we're charging them $3 a child, and they're bringing 120
We need
kids
to
in.
analyze the whole.
Right, right.
And I know, Kyle, you came up with the recommendation for the PV Park Day this year, and I think that was tremendous. I think it did help bring in some additional
Memberships.
memberships
Yeah,
and
we got-
guests. And you know what, knock on wood, from what I've been hearing, the water has been
Water's
fantastic.
Yeah. The feedback's been great.
So I think DPW is doing a great job circulating at night, bringing it from Woodland Lake and bringing it out of PV Park, so keep up the good work, so.
Just need to keep promoting it.
Pass the word.
All right. Next on the agenda is public hearing ordinance number 2019-13, Ms. Marsh.
Read it up.
Ordinance number 2019-13 is an ordinance amending Chapter 132 of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Pequannock and regulating itinerant vending.
Are there any comments from council?
No, we went over that.
Yep, absolutely. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If anyone in the audience has any questions or comments on this ordinance, please come to the microphone and identify yourself for the record. Seeing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
I'll make the motion to adopt ordinance number 2019-13.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Phelan?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Cole?
Yes. Next on the agenda is ordinances for introduction, and there are none for this evening. Next on the agenda is resolutions. Ms. Marsh.
Beginning with Resolution R 2019-187, authorizing the purchase through Sourcewell, formerly known as NJPA, of a Terex High Ranger Pro 6070 insulated aerial device on a Freightliner M2106 cab chassis with the Dakota bodies, Inc.
Fancy.
flatbed and accessories.
Bet you don't say that all the time.
I come all the way to the end, though, pretty well. R 2019-188, authorizing the further discretionary award of a contract for improvements to the animal shelter at 11 Washington Street in Pompton Plains to Get It Done Home Improvements for the additional amount of $2,850 for the installation of insulation, bringing the total amount of all contracts to $23,425. R 2019-189, authorizing the sale of certain property owned by the Township of Pequannock, known as Block 2306, Lot 20, not required for public purposes pursuant to NJSA 40A, that's supposed to be 12-13, paragraph A. R 2018-190, confirming the designated memberships in the Pequannock Township Fire Department. 2019-191, canceling grant fund balances. 2019-192, authorizing utility office refunds, overpayments, or cancellations. 193, authorizing the reinstatement of a special sewer assessment payment plan. And R 2019-194, approving payment of the itemized claims as set forth on the August 23, 2019 bill list and 2015 and 16 FEMA elevation escrow lists.
Are there any comments on the resolutions from council?
Two quick ones for everyone's benefit. So what kind of truck is that?
It's a tree truck.
Terex High, right?
Bottom line is it's basically a tree truck.
Bucket tree truck.
Right. And you might want to just say something about the animal shelter tonight, or maybe you were going to say it
I was
later.
going to say it in the
in your
comments,
report.
so.
But yeah, no, I think that's great. Okay.
Yeah. And,
Nothing else.
I did ask Mr. Brewer about the truck, and I guess we did budget $225 for this truck, $225,000 in the 2019 budget, and it came in under budget, so.
So that's good.
And this is to enable us to trim trees that are on township property instead of using an outside vendor, correct?
We currently have a tree truck that needs to be replaced. It was well used. It continues the level of service and hopefully will enhance it that we already provided.
Yeah, actually, aren't we selling that one? The old one?
You buying it?
No. I buy tractor trailers, I don't buy
There you go.
cars.
Any other comments? Is there a motion to adopt these resolutions?
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution R 2019-187 through R 2019-194.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Phelan?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mayor Cole?
Yes. Next item is items for discussion, and there's nothing on the list for discussion this evening. There are no reports or notices. Next item on the agenda is council reports and announcements. Councilwoman Florence Lynch.
The only thing I have is a reminder that Economic Development Committee will meet tomorrow night, here in this room at 7:30. Other than that, I have nothing.
All right. Councilman Hurd?
Thank you, Mayor. I really don't have much. I will let you talk about the dogs and cats. I did have one thing. I saw in the paper about Wayne is doing desnagging, or they're trying to get a DEP permit for desnagging. Any idea what part of the river that is, and is there any way that we can jump in on that and either help them out or whatnot? Do our side, they do their side?
I don't know what area I can reach out to someone and find out and report back.
I just read it.
I know, yeah, we currently have engineers engaged in permitting work to do the same, so.
Okay.
Well, hopefully it marries up and all helps everybody, but.
That's all I have.
Find out and report back.
Councilman Phelan?
Okay, just a reminder that Company 2's Fish and Chip Dinner is October 17th.
Yeah.
And Company 1's beefsteak, I believe, is either the 25th or the 26th. I keep forgetting to ask my coworker what date it is.
What were those dates, Rich?
17th of October, and it's either the 25th or the 26th. Dave, you don't know, right? No.
It's on the board in front of the firehouse.
Okay. Is that like the sign hanging out there for a hoedown? 7th?
No, I just marked it wrong in my calendar.
October 17th
No, but I know
is
they
fish
put
and
it up
chips.
on the firehouse
Okay,
board because I
and
saw it.
I believe the
forget
fire
what it
companies
said.
will be down in Wildwood the second week, the week after Labor Day week.
Yeah.
Correct, Dave? Correct. Thank you, Dave.
The authority.
Anything else, Councilman?
That's it.
All right. Councilwoman Russell?
Nothing, I just want to remind everybody that the hoedown is September 14th.
14th, not 7th.
Not the 7th, it's the 14th.
Melissa
11
was
to 5.
confused.
I just marked it wrong in my calendar.
All right, that's it? You good, Kyle?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So tonight we had the dedication of the adult animal shelter. If you haven't been there, there's been a tremendous amount of work done. New dog exercise area, meet and greet location for dog adoptions, added new expandable vinyl fencing for around the dog area shelter, graded and replaced stone with river stone, safer for dogs outside the dog kennel area, created new concrete pathways from the shelter to the dog exercise area, side gate and shed, renovated office and shelter, welcome area, new counter, wainscoting, window coverings, renovated bathroom, new fixtures and vanity, new paint throughout the shelter, office, bathroom, tub room, dog kennel area, cat rooms, ceilings, new lighting in the office and dog kennel area, new drop ceiling in the dog kennel area, insulated the dog kennel area above the office, previously was no insulation at all, clean the HVAC ductwork, replace HVAC duct vents, insulated HVAC ductwork in the garage, added a duct air sanitizer to the HVAC ductwork, installed the gas line so they can convert from oil to gas, and pending replacing the old oil burner to a new gas-powered furnace, and a particulated air purifier to catch the dog and cat dander. And also pending is the upgrading the existing air conditioning with a larger capacity unit, and all of that was made possible through the grant and donation that we received from Columbia Bank, which was $60,000. We also received a donation from Synthetic Lawns and Golf for the new grass area for the dogs, which are a lot more animal canine friendly. So it was a great upgrade. If you haven't been to the animal shelter, stop down, see it. A lot of great things happening there. So that was that. The fire hydrants on the turnpike, most of them have been painted red, so if you haven't seen them, drive by and take a look at them. Yeah, they do look good. There is a reflective coating on the top, so drive by tonight and see if you can actually, if there's any sort of reflection. The clock down by Atlantic Stewardship is back up and running and lit, so stop by, drive by at night so we can see what it looks like at night. Last week, as you know, Adam, myself, and Dave Cycling were invited to a meeting in Newark with Governor Murphy. about the water situation there, and it sounds like Essex County has helped bail out Newark to make it a lot quicker, so those lead lines are being replaced instead of 10 years. They'll be replaced in roughly 2 or 3 years. And just to note, we have no evidence of any lead-based service lines in the township of Pequannock. And I told the governor the biggest problem that we're having right now is the news agencies, because they're reporting that if you live in the Pequannock area, you have lead in the water, and that's a false statement. If you live in Newark and you're serviced by the Pequannock Water Treatment Plant that's owned by Newark in West Milford, you have lead in the water, so.
I'm glad we cleared that up there.
He said, maybe we want to consider a name change, and I said, how about the watershed consider a name change? October 19th, the First Aid Squad is having a fundraiser. It's the John Lennon concert this year. What is it? Yep. So, Spotlight Concert. That'll be held at the high school, and they're usually fantastic performers, so stop by, get your tickets, and have fun. And that's all I have. Next on the agenda is public comment. If anyone wishes to address the council, please wait to be recognized, come to the microphone, provide your name and address for the record. Seeing public? Seeing none, there's no minutes for approval. There are no items for closed session? No?
That's correct.
There being no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned at 7:57.